How have you been feeling, Jungkook? She asked. Are those intrusive voices still as persistent? Do you still feel awkward in social situations, especially with women? Jungkook shook his head lightly, a small smile tugging at his lips. They are still there, but not as loud as before. I can manage them better now. The doctor nodded, making a note in her file. You have made incredible progress. Those voices might never fully disappear, but it's clear you have learned how to control them and how much they can affect you. That's a remarkable step forward. Jungkook leaned forward slightly, resting his hands at the table. It feels easier now to focus on other things that are better. Exactly, she said with an approving smile. It's all about where you place your focus. The more you invested in the positive aspect of life, the less power those negative thoughts will have. You have come so far, Jungkook. I'm really proud of your progress. Jungkook nodded, but his thoughts wandered. 4 years ago, this conversation would have been felt impossible. Back then, he had been cold, distant, and convinced he was beyond saving. But she had encouraged him, pushed him in her own quiet way to start caring for himself. The doctor voice brought him back to the present. With the progress you have made, I think we can reduce the frequency of these sessions. You have shown incredible resilience, and you are in much better place now. Of course, I'll always here for you if you need me. Thank you, Doc, he said, standing as the session ended. Walking out of office, he exhaled deeply, a faint smile on his face. He wasn't perfect, not even close, but he was better. His mind wandered briefly to the past, and though he didn't say her name aloud, he knew who had sparked the change in him, guiding him toward a better version of himself. Jungkook stepped out of the bathroom, rubbing his damp hair with a towel, his jeans hanging low on his lips. The cool air in his room greeted him, and he was about to toss the towel aside when something brushed against his leg. He jumped slightly, startled. Looking down, he found Toki, his grown-up tortoise, rolling towards him on the mini skateboard Jungkook had made for him. Toki's little legs paddled in excitement, clearly happy to see him. Jungkook shook his head, a chuckle escaping his lips. Yeah, Toki, are you going to give me a mini heart attack? He knelt down, carefully picking up the tortoise. Toki's shell now felt heavier in his hands, a reminder of how much time had passed since he first came into Jungkook's life. You have grown so big. You used to fit in my palm, and now you are almost too big for my hands. Jungkook tilted his head, pretending to scold the tortoise. And what's with you rolling around on this skateboard like a ripple, huh? Do you know how dangerous that can be? He said dramatically, setting Toki down on the floor. No more skateboard for you today. That's your punishment. Toki understood, craned his neck, trying to reach out for the board. Jungkook shook his head. Don't even think about it. Toki scuttled forward, bumping Jungkook's leg lightly before retreating a few steps, as if playing some kind of hide and seek. Jungkook narrowed his eyes, leaning back on his knees. Oh, so that's how it is? He murmured, watching as Toki poked his head out, clearly enjoying the game. Shaking his head, Jungkook grabbed the tiny creature and stood up. Alright, let's get you clean up, little troublemaker. He headed back to the bathroom, filling a shallow basin with the warm water. Toki stretched his neck gracefully as Jungkook lowered him in. With steady hands, Jungkook scrubbed Toki's shell gently, his movement practiced and careful. His lips quirked into a faint smile as he watched the tortoise blink slowly, seemingly content. You have become such part of my routine, haven't you? He thought. Once they both were fresh and clean, Jungkook sat at the table feeding Toki small bean sprouts. The tortoise nibbled eagerly, his tiny jaw working with enthusiasm. Jungkook leaned back in his chair, observing him with a rare softness in his eyes. You act like I don't have anything better to do, he muttered, though there was no real bite in his tone. He reached out, running a finger along Toki's head. The tortoise stretched his neck in response, his quiet affection apparent. Suddenly, loud shouting from the living room broke the quiet. Appa, Amma, Oppa, everyone come out here. Isha's voice sounded urgent and Jungkook's brow furrowed in concern. He picked up Toki, holding him securely in his hands. What's she yelling about this time? He muttered, glancing at the tortoise. Guess we gotta go and find out. Jungkook listened to the stair with Toki balanced carefully in his hands. His expression calm, though his mind still lingered on Isha's earlier shouting. Mr. and Mrs. John were already in the living room. When he arrived, their expression curious but slightly concerned. What's going on? He asked as Isha stood before them, her eyes aligned with excitement, barely able to contain herself. She broke into a wide grin. I got in, my application was selected. I'm going to London University. Mrs. John's eyes widened in delight. Oh, Isha, that's amazing news. Congratulations, my dear. She stepped forward, cupping Isha's cheeks briefly in affection. We are so proud of you. Mr. John gave a small approving nod. You have worked so hard for this. It's well deserved. Isha beamed, soaking in their congratulations, but Jungkook stood still in daze. His chest felt warm at the mention of place, and though he tried to push the thought away, a familiar face flickered in his mind. His heart skipped, not with the dread, but with something gentler, sweeter, a quiet longing he had grown used to over the years. Mrs. John broke the momentary silence, her tone soft but tinged with worry. You'll leave us too then? Isha rolled her eyes playfully, her voice light, side-hugging her mother. Amma, I'm going to study abroad, not run off to fight on a battlefield. I'll be fine. But Mrs. John's worry was not so easily dismissed. It's not that, Isha, it's just so far away. How will you manage everything on your own? You don't know anyone there. Also, how you're going to make food for yourself? You don't know cooking. Amma, she went. That's not true. I can cook now. Also, I have already been talking to Wine. She said she'd help me get settled. And we have been planning this for a while now. Everything is settled, plus Jimin Oppa is also there. And he said he'll look for me if I need anything there. Jungkook pretended that his heart didn't move at the mention of her name. Keeping his face neutral, yet deep down her name stirred something tender within him. Over the year, his feelings for her had only grown, blooming quietly even in her absence. He had accepted it as a part of himself, a soft ache he carried with him. Before Mrs. John could respond, Mr. Jungkook interjected, "You're not going alone there, Isha." Isha tilted her head confused. What that's supposed to be mean, Appa? Mr. John turned to Jungkook, his tone firm but calm. Jungkook will go with you. Jungkook blinked, his body stiffening slightly. Me? Yes, he nodded. I trust you completely, Isha, that you are capable, but the world isn't always kind, especially in a foreign country. Having Jungkook there will ease my mind. He'll stay until you are fully settled and comfortable. Isha paused, considering her father's word. She nodded slowly, her expressions changing for an entire different reason. Alright, Appa, I understand. Then turning to Jungkook with a teasing smile, she added, Sopa's going to be my bodyguard in London. I like the sound of that. Jungkook's lips twitched in a faint smile, but that humor didn't completely settle his racing heart. He wasn't afraid or hesitant in a way he might have been years ago. Instead, a nervous anticipation took root in him. The thought of seeing her again brought a nervous flutter to his chest, a hopeful kind of nervousness. But the thought of it's been years, and what if she had forgotten him? What if she had moved on from him? The thought itself brought an ache to his chest, and he cowered, avoiding it. Appa, she is right. Jimin is there. My presence is not needed. You had refused to go there. That's why we had to send to Jimin, he added, sensing Jungkook's hesitation. Jimin could only handle few things with the expertise, but you also have a chance to inspection how the business is progressing there. Jimin's been calling you to join him for months now. Jungkook nodded slowly, his voice steady despite the quiet storm inside him. Isha grinned, clearly excited about the news, but Jungkook thought outwardly composed, felt his heart beating faster with every passing second. He glanced down at Toki, the little tortoise, giving him a curious tilt of his head, as if sensing his unease, but pedaled his legs in excitement as well. The idea of London carried the sharp pain of the past. Instead, he held a tender hope. The last goodbye had been bittersweet, as to his mind, Now, possibility of seeing her again felt like an open door to something new. It was nerve-wracking, yes, but it was also something he couldn't help but look forward to. The hum of the plane's engine filled the cabin as Jungkook stared out of the window, his fingers absently rubbing together, a telltale sign of his nervousness. Isha sat beside him, scrolling through her phone, when she suddenly glanced at him and smirked. Oppa, she called, her tone light and teasing. Are you nervous? Jungkook turned to her, his expression calm as he raised a brow. No, why would I be? Isha eyes darted to his hands, still feasting in his lap. She knew this habit of too well, decided not to point it out. Instead, she shrugged, her voice playful. It just seems like you are. Are you nervous to meet her again? Jungkook's head snapped to her, his gaze sharp. What are you talking about? Isha grinned mischievously. Oh, didn't I tell you I have already told Vine that we are coming? She is coming to pick up us at the airport. Jungkook had stuttered, a mix of anticipation of anxiety flooding him. He turned away, leaning back in his seat as the thoughts swelled in his mind. How does she look now? Is she more beautiful? Is she happy without me? A faint ache settled in his chest at the thought. Even though Vine had assured him years ago that none of what happened was his fault, Jungkook couldn't fully let go of the guilt. He still blamed himself in quiet moments, replaying those days like a broken record. By the way, she added with a grin, she seemed really happy when I told her you are coming too. Her words struck a chord, sending a flutter of hope through Jungkook. Does she still have feeling for me? As she moved on, does she still miss me like I miss her? But then another thought hit him, a thought of he didn't want to entertain. What if she already has a boyfriend now? The idea twisted his chest painfully, and he forced himself to push it aside. I have no right to feel this way. She is free to do whatever makes her happy. Jungkook shrugged, feigning indifference. I'm tired, I'm going to sleep, he said, closing his eyes. Isha gave him a knowing look but decided to let it go. Sure, Appa, sleep well, she said, her voice teasing but affectionate. As Jungkook leaned back, trying to relax, his mind betrayed him. Vine's face filled with his thoughts. The way she looked at night when he said goodbye, her soft smile, her eyes brimming with unshed tears. He couldn't picture her any older, still seeing her as the 18-year-old girl who had walked out of his life 4 years ago. His chest tightened as the memories played on loop, and the thought he kept his eyes shut, sleep eluded him. The nervous energy remained, mingling with something deeper, an ache, a longing he couldn't ignore. A sleek black car maneuvered through the parking lot, the driver expertly navigating towards the empty space. The girl sat behind the wheel of the car, her figure bathed in soft glow of the dashboard light. She wore a cozy white knit sweater tucked neatly into high-waisted black jeans, executing a casual yet effortlessly elegant look. Her dark hair fell loosely around her shoulders, framing her soft, delicate features. Despite nervous energy she radiated, there was a warmth of her presence, a quiet strength that seemed to draw others in. A boy sitting in passenger seat glanced at her. He noticed her hands gripping the steering wheel a little too tightly, her knuckles turning pale as the tension in her body became more evident. When did you say they'd arrive? He asked, his voice light, trying to ease the silence that had settled in the car. She texted saying they are already here. She replied, her tone steady yet carrying an undercurrent of hesitation. She glanced at her phone, where Isha's message still blinked on the screen. Well then, he said with a chuckle. What are we waiting for? He turned his head to look for her fully, catching the subtle way of her lips pressed together and the slight furrow in her brow. Wait, are you okay? Why do you look so nervous? You are going to meet your best friend, not the Queen Victoria. Vine let out a shaky laugh, thought it the little disguise the storm brain inside her. She loosened her grip on the wheel and looked at him, her warm energy faltering for a moment. I'm fine, she said quickly, brushing off his concern. But Mandy wasn't convinced. Vine, he leaned closer, studying her closely. Why are you so nervous? Is it because... He paused, not finishing the thought, but the slight lift of his brow told her he already knew. Vine swallowed hard, her gaze flickering back to the dashboard before she took a deep breath. It wasn't Isha she was nervous about, it was him. When Isha mentioned Jungkook would be accompanying her, Vine hadn't been prepared. The mention of his name had sent a flurry of emotion rushing to the surface. Excitement, fear, and that gnawing nervousness that had gripping the steering wheel moments ago. It's been years. How much has he changed? How will I react when I see him again? Her heart raced at the thought of his face, a face she hadn't seen in 4 long years. She wondered if he was still the same, still carrying that subtle intensity that had always drawn her to him. But more than anything, she wondered if he was happy now. Mandy's voice cut through her spiraling thoughts. Are you sure you're okay? Vine nodded, brushing her loose hair behind her ear and giving him a small warm smile. I'm fine, she said again, this time with more confidence. Let's go. Stepping out of the car, her sweater catching the cool breeze and her hair falling softly around her shoulders, Vine radiated a quiet beauty. She walked towards the airport entrance with Mandy by her side, her exterior calm and composed. But inside her heart was pounding and all she could think about was the man she was about to see, the one she hadn't been able to forget, no matter how hard she tried. Vine and Mandy stepped inside, their eyes scanning the crowd. Vine clutched her phone tightly, her thumb hovering over the screen. She quickly dialed Isha's number, placing the phone to her ear as she tried to locate her best friend. Ish, where are you? She asked, scanning the crowd. Turn around, came the cheerful reply, so close that Vine instantly pulled the phone away, startled by how near the voice sounded. Confused, she turned, and there she was, Isha, standing a few feet away, her luggage by her side, wearing her trademark bright smile. Her voice broke into a delighted laugh as she fully turned towards her best friend, but before she could take a step, Isha had already closed the distance between them, sprinting towards and throwing her arms around her. You thought you could get rid of me so easily, she said, squeezing Vine tightly, her voice full of emotion, and Vine just shook her head. I missed you so much. I missed you too, she murmured, hugging her back just as tightly. Mandy stood at the side, watching the reunion with a soft smile. He had never seen Vine this happy. She looked radiant, her usual calm demeanor replaced with a rare sparkle of pure joy. The hug lingered for a moment before Isha pulled back, holding Vine by the shoulder as she examined her closely. Oh my god, Vine, you got a lot prettier. Are you trying to give me competition? Vine chuckled, her cheeks warming. How can I be prettier than you when you yourself have grown up to be so beautiful? Well, duh, I have been beautiful since I was born, she said with a wink, flipping her hair dramatically. Vine laughed, shaking her head again. Some things never changed, and for that, she was grateful. Despite the years and distance, Isha was still the same bubbly and quirky girl who had her rock through everything. Mandy hugged back, giving the two best friends their moment. Watching them, he thought they looked like a long-lost sister reunited after years apart. A small smile tugged at his lips. Vine really did seem happier than before. Once the initial excitement settled, Vine glanced around in the terminal, scanning the crowd. Her heart gave a small flutter of anticipation, searching for the one person she had been nervous about seeing. Isha noticed immediately, her sharp eyes catching Vine's subtle glance. A mischievous smile appeared across her face. Oppa isn't here, she said casually. Vine blinked, caught off guard. Huh? He got a call from Jim and Oppa about some emergency. She explained, her tone light but observant. He couldn't wait and had to leave, but he told me to text him when I arrived safely. A flicker of disappointment crossed Vine's face before she quickly masked it with a small smile. Oh, that's okay, she said, brushing it off. Isha tilted her head and teased. What's with that look? Why are you hoping to see someone else? Don't tell me you are not happy to see me. Vine immediately shook her head. No, it's not like that, she said quickly, her voice almost too earnest. Isha smirked but let it slide. Alright, let's go. I'm starving and I swear I'll collapse if we don't eat soon. Vine lips tucked into a small smile. Isha turned to Mandy, her sharp gaze landing on him. You're Mandy, right? Vance told me about you. Mandy blinked, taken back by her straightforwardness. Oh, yeah, that's me. Isha grinned, sizing him up. You seem alright, not as boring as I expected, she said bluntly. Mandy raised an eyebrow. Thanks, I guess. He glanced at Vine, who gave him an apologetic smile, silently telling him to roll with it. She suddenly exclaimed, stopping in her tracks. My suitcase, I forgot it. She turned on Mandy with a bright smile. Can you grab it for me? Mandy frowned, pointing at himself. Me? Of course, who else? She said, her tone matter of fact. Mandy groaned, looking at Vine for help, but she just gave him another apologetic look. He said dramatically, fine. With exaggerated effort, he picked up the suitcase and followed the two girls, grumbling under his breath about being treated like a porter. Isha, obvious or simply ignoring his theatrics, slipped her arm through Vine's. They walked out of the airport, chattered animatedly, catching up as if all the years apart hadn't existed. The condo door swung open and Mandy dragged Isha's luggage inside, huffing exaggeratedly as he dropped it in the middle of living room. There, he muttered, brushing his hands off like he had just climbed a mountain. Isha looked around, scanning the spacious living room. So this is the place, she asked, turning to Vine. Vine nodded with a small smile. Yep, this is where we are living. 4 bedroom, 1 kitchen and 1 common washroom. A month ago there was 2 girls living here, but they moved back to their country. Now it's just Mandy and me, and now you. Isha hummed in approval, walking around the room and peeking into the open space. Her gaze landed on Mandy, who had plopped down on the couch, clearly done with the life for the day. So which room is yours? She asked to Vine. The one across the hall, she replied. Mandy has the big room over there since it's his place, she said, pointing at the door at the far end. Isha turned to Mandy with a raised brow. Wait, this place belongs to you? Mandy straightened up, suddenly looking proud. Yep, I'm the owner. Isha blinked at him, her face blank for a moment before she burst out laughing. You don't look like the owner. Mandy's jaw dropped as he stared at her, utterly offended. Excuse me, what's that supposed to be mean? Vine quickly intervened, smiling nervously. Actually, it's his father who owns the place. Mandy just live here. He talked to his dad about letting you stay. She tried to give her be serious hints to Isha, who was laughing but calmed down. Oh, I'm sorry bro, I didn't know, and thanks I guess. Her tone was nonchalant, as if Mandy had just handed her a glass of water instead of arranging her living situation. Mandy threw his hands up. This is unreal, not even a day and I'm already done with her, he said, retreating back to his room, muttering, she really thinks herself of Queen Victoria. Yes, she grinned cheekily, turning back to Vine. So why are you living here and not with your family? The university is closer to the place. It made more sense to move out. Oh, that makes sense, she said, looking around again. As the chatter died down, Vine clapped her hands together. Alright, let's get you settled. You should freshen up after that long flight. Agreed, I feel like a zombie, she admitted, stretching her arms. Vine led Isha down to the hall, stepping in front of the empty bedrooms. She opened the door to reveal a neat, cozy space with freshly made bed, a small desk with a lamp. This one's yours, I prepared it yesterday, she said with a small smile. Isha looked around, nodding in approval. Nice, thanks Vine. No problem. You can freshen up first since there's only one bathroom. I'll take bath after you, she said, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear. I went straight from university to airport, so I needed to. Isha chuckled. Got it, I'll be quick. Isha grabbed her toiletries and headed to bathroom. Mandy peeked out of his room, catching a glimpse of her. By the way, he called out, don't break anything, the deposit's on me. Isha shot him a look over her shoulder. Oh please, what do you think of me? Mandy blinked, then narrowed his eyes. You're exhausting, and you're dramatic, she said with a grin before disappearing into bathroom. Mandy sat leaning against his door frame. How do I get roped into this? He asked to Vine. Actually, she heard you making fun of her English accent on the other day we were on video call, she explained. Oh, it wasn't that serious, he exclaimed. Is she trying to take revenge on me this way? Why nodded. Might be, Isha is little sensitive related to these things, but she forgive easily too. She is really totally opposite of you, he complains. Don't worry, you'll get habitual of her antics. Just obey what she says. She is not that bad she is showing to you. One thing more, could you please order some Korean food? I need to make an urgent call, she said as she excused herself retreating to her room. It is going to be exhausting. Isha just settled into her room after a shower when her phone buzzed with an incoming call from Jungkook. Oh no, she muttered, realizing she hadn't called him. Nervously, she answered. Oppa, sorry, I forgot to. Did you reach safely? His voice boomed, cutting her off. Yes, I'm so sorry. I sent you the location earlier though, she explained quickly. I got excited meeting wine and forgot to call. At the mention of wine, there was a brief pause on Jungkook's end. Isha, sensing the shift, quickly added, How's Jimin Oppa? Is he okay now? He is fine, he replied. Just a routine checkup, nothing serious. Seriously, Jimin Oppa scared you for nothing, she said in relief. Anyway, where are you now? Jungkook's reply startled her. I'm downstairs at your location you sent. What? She rushed to the window, spotting Jungkook standing below. She waved at her brother. Wait here, Oppa, I'll come down. Jungkook shook his head. No, I'm coming up. It's cold outside, stay there. A few minutes later, Isha opened the door, finding Jungkook standing there. Did you come alone? She asked. Jimin's parking the car, he said as he stepped inside. So this is where you are staying? Yep, she said cheerfully. It's better than girls' hostel. Van's here too, and I'm not alone. Jungkook nodded, his eyes wandering the space. Before he could ask more, Mandy stepped out of his room. Who's this? Mandy asked, eyeing Jungkook curiously. My brother, she replied. Oppa, this is Mandy, the caretaker of this place. Owner, he corrected, raising a brow. Right, that too, she said with a grin. Jungkook greeted Mandy with a slight bow. Jungkook, nice to meet you. Same here, he replied, buzzing. The sound of the doorbell echoed through the condo. That's probably the food, he said before heading to the door. Jungkook turned back to Isha, his protective instinct flaring. Is he staying here too? Mandy returned a moment later, balancing several bags of takeout and carried them to the kitchen. Isha turned to Jungkook, lowering her voice. Of course, Oppa, it's his place, and he asked his dad to let me stay, plus Van's here too, and it's close to university. Don't worry, he's harmless, she said with a smile. From the kitchen, Mandy's voice echoed. I can hear your loud voice, by the way. Isha rolled her eyes. So what? Take it as a compliment. I was being nice. Mandy shook his head, muttering, Why, I'm already getting used to this. As he arranged the food, Mandy turned to Jungkook, looking apologetic. Oh, sorry, I didn't know you were coming, or I gotten something better prepared. The food might not be enough for everyone. Jungkook shrugged, trying to appear casual. Don't worry about it, I was just making sure she's settled. I'll be leaving soon anyway. But Isha quickly interjected, shaking her head. Oh no, Pa, you're not leaving that easily. She turned to Mandy and said, Whatever you got for me, just give it to him instead. Jungkook immediately protested, I'm fine, don't worry about me. I saw a Korean restaurant near the dome when I arrived. I'll get my food from there. Mandy, sensing where this was going, looking up from the bags. Do you even know the way? Isha paused but quickly recovered. That's why you are coming with me. Mandy blinked, pointing at himself. Me? Yes, you. Who else? You know the streets around here, right? Mandy smirked faintly. I know you are requesting, but it sounds like an order to my ears. It is an order, she replied flatly. Before they could escalate further, Jungkook stepped in. You don't have to do all that. I can go get something myself. Really, it's not a big deal. It is big deal, she said, crossing her arms. You came all the way here for me, and now you are not leaving until I feel better about it. She turned back to Mandy. You grab your jacket, you are showing me the way. Mandy sighed but didn't argue, grabbing his jacket from the back of a chair. Fine, let's get over with this. Jungkook was hesitant. Are you sure you'll be okay? It's just around the corner, she reassured him, pulling Mandy along. We'll be quick, don't worry. Still reluctant, Jungkook finally nodded. Alright, but don't take too long, it's cold outside. Isha gave him a playful salute before heading to the door, pulling Mandy along. Mandy glanced back at Jungkook, muttering, You got a quite bossy little sister. Jungkook simply sighed, watching them leave before settling back in the living room, the condo now quiet again. The living room was eerily quiet after Mandy and Isha left. Jungkook stood there glancing around. He had to admit the place was nice, comfortable, and cozy, the kind of environment he could see Isha can stay. He nodded to himself, reassured. And just as few seconds passed, a few soft clicks broke the stillness. The silence made even the faintest noise seemed amplified, and his head turned towards the hallway. The door creaked open and in walked Wine. Out of shower in her nightsuit, she was barefoot in fluffy bunny slippers, hair damp and cascading down her shoulders, a towel in her hand as she absent-mindedly wiped it. She hadn't noticed Jungkook standing there yet. When she muttered words with the noise, "Don't tell me you and Isha started fighting again." Her words died mid-sentence as her gaze finally landed on him. It wasn't Bandy, it was him. Her breath hissed as her eyes widened and she froze in place. The towel slipped from her fingers to her side as her mind reeled in shock. Her heart leaped thundering against her chest so loudly it felt impossible for him not to hear it. Her eyes scanned his face, taking in familiar yet sharper features. The defined jawline, the piercing gaze, the aura of calm dominance he carried so effortlessly. He looked the same yet different, more mature and more refined. She clenched the towel tightly in her hands at the sight, fighting the storm of emotion rushing through her. Her first love, the one who had held her heart so tenderly yet painfully, was standing before her, and she didn't know how to react in front of him. For Jungkook, world seemed to pause the moment his gaze landed on her. It was like being hit by a tidal wave. She wasn't the shy, innocent 18-year-old girl he remembered. She had grown into a woman, beautiful in ways that made his chest ache. Her features were softer, yet there was a maturity in her eyes that tugged at his heart. His pulse quickened as his gaze lingered on her, but he forced himself to keep his expression neutral, so inside he was anything but calm. When their eyes met, it felt like 1,000 unspoken words were exchanged in an instant. The air between them was thick with tension, almost suffocating. Wine broke the eye contact first, her lashes fluttering as she looked down. Jungkook noticed how she nervously fidgeted with the towel in her hands. Then the realization hit him. His gaze was making her uncomfortable. Quickly he cleared his thoughts, stepping back slightly. "Oh, Mandy and Isha went to get the food," he said, his voice lower than usual. Wine nodded, her head still slightly bowed, her voice barely above a whisper. "Okay." The tension was unbearable. Jungkook decided to break it further. "I should probably check on them. It's been a while." "Right," she replied quickly, pointing towards her room. "I'll just head back." They nodded at each other, both too flustered to say more. Both moved in opposite directions hastily as Wine quickly turned and disappeared into her room, shutting the door behind her a little too forcefully. Jungkook accidentally bumping into a nearby plant. He caught it just in time before it fell, setting it back in place with an embarrassed half, slipped out of the door. Inside her room, Wine leaned her back against the door, her heart racing. She took a few deep breaths, trying to calm herself, but it was no use. The memory of his piercing gaze and the way her name seemed to hang in the air between them made her chest tighten. "Why am I like this?" she groaned, putting her face in her hands. The tension had been too much, and she had bolted like a startled deer. She went softly, throwing her towel onto the bed. "What is he thinking that I'm still affected by him? Oh, get a grip on Wine." After a few moments, she gathered her courage, deciding to check if he was still there. She cracked the door open and peeked out, only to find out the living room empty, her brows furrowed in confusion. "Where did he go?" she muttered, stepping out cautiously. For a moment she had hoped to see him again, even though the thought of made her stomach churn nervously. Her gaze lingered on the entrance door before she sighed, retreating back into her room, her mind still swirling with emotions. Jungkook stepped out of the condo, his heart still racing from the encounter with Wine. The cold winter air hit him instantly, but it wasn't enough to cool his thoughts. He was about to take another step when he bumped into Jimin, who was just trudging towards the building. "Aren't you going inside?" he asked, his brow furrowing in confusion. "Nope," he replied, hastily grabbing Jimin by the arm and pulling him back towards the street. "Wait, what the?" he huffed, stumbling after him. "It's freezing out there, man. I just parked the car so far away because there is no spot nearby. Do you know how hard it was to find one? Jungkook didn't answer, his grip firm as he dragged Jimin along. Why are we going back out? He grumbled, shivering. You are acting weird. I forgot to buy something earlier for them, he muttered. What could they possibly need right now? He complained. You should have told me earlier. Now we have to hike back to the car in snow. Are you serious? I just remembered. He shot back, avoiding Jimin's suspicious gaze. Jimin sighed, trudging along, but suddenly stopped when his eyes landed on Jungkook's face. Hold up, he said, leaning in closer. Your ears are red, your face too, like really red. What's wrong with you? It's just cold, he replied stiffly, turning his face away. Jimin smirked and reached out to touch his ear. It's warm though. Should I warm my hands on your face? That'd be nice. Jungkook patted his hand away, glaring at him. Don't you even dare. Jimin laughed, truly amused. Relax, I was joking. I didn't know you'd get this red in snow though. Cute. Jungkook groaned and shoved his hands into his pockets, muttering, Let's go, we are wasting time. Jimin shot him a curious look but shrugged. Fine, but you owe me a hot chocolate for this, and I don't think I'm helping you carrying anything. This is all your fault. As they walked, Jungkook thought wandered back to Wine. Her face flashed in his mind, her wide starlit eyes, the way she clutched the towel nervously, and now her voice faltered when she saw him. His chest tightened, and before he knew it, a small smile tugged at his lips. He quickly wiped it away before Jimin could notice. Jimin still caught his expression though. You good? You awfully quiet. I'm fine, he replied quickly, his tone sharper than he intended. Jimin shrugged, clearly unconvinced. Whatever you say, but if you start smiling out of nowhere again, I'm going to assume you are losing it. Jungkook rolled his eyes, ignoring him as they trudged through the snow, but no matter how hard he tried to focus, his mind kept drifting back to Vian, and he felt the corner of his lip twitch upward again. He forced it down. Get it together. He scolded himself silently.